Sousio Talk. That's right. That's right. He didn't think I had my own theme song.
Been waiting for my invite for months.
For decades. Well, Chef, we had to open the restaurant first.
I know.
All right, so we're chilling here at Maison Pezzarel on 1 Wall Street. This is historic. Right now, we just opened on April 17th. And Chef, just for everyone that doesn't know you, let them know a little bit of background about yourself, even though everyone knows who you are.
No, everyone knows.
Gregory Gourdet.
I am the chef and owner of Kann restaurant in Portland, Oregon. Currently the culinary director of Printemps, New York, in New York City. I have a bar in Portland, Oregon, which celebrates the Pan-Caribbean diaspora through its beverage and snacks as well.
Okay.
I have a published cookbook, which is a national bestseller, and I have 3 James Beard Awards.
Tell him, Chef.
For various accomplishments, including Best New Restaurant.
That's right.
Best Chef Region.
God damn.
And what else? I've been on Top Chef a couple times. I've been a
Right.
2-time Top Chef finalist.
Okay.
I've been a judge. And I'm a fashion girly, and I'm a health freak, and I'm a marathoner. And I try to be a nice guy.
Just fucking do it all, Chef. I fucking love it. Love it. That's very cool. So Maison Pezzarel, when did you come onto this project?
So I came onto this project, I think I was approached in like October of 2022. October 2023, which was literally like a year after we opened Kann. But we had the first meeting, and it's very funny because I love New York. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but you know, being from here, having left deep in addiction, and kind of like refining my life and refining my purpose on the West Coast, you know, I always kind of would come home and like just try to catch up with my friends. And as I've been getting older, I'm almost pushing 50.
Yeah.
I felt like I really just wanted to kind of spend more time with my older friends, like the people that I grew up with, like my relatives, like all the people who like held me down when I worked in New York. Yeah. So it was like coming to New York a lot more. Any gig I could get, I would come and fly to New York. And I was like thinking, kind of scheming, how can I live part-time in New York? And miraculously, this opportunity came up. And here I am living in New York for a little bit longer than I thought I would be. But
there we go, baby.
Yeah.
So it's Kann Hospitality Group, Printemps.
Indeed.
How did your name get thrown in the hat? Like, what was...
So, I think, well, there's a group called Friend of Chef, and they connect developers with chefs.
Yeah, keep going.
So they've helped some of my friends get their kind of deals and connections. They connected Kwame with Tatiana and Lincoln Center. Well, Lincoln Center, and he created Tatiana, which is like a, you know, award-winning restaurant. My friend Jamal, who I partner with, who founded Kann Hospitality, also that's how he got connected to his space at 70 Pine.
Okay.
And he has, you know, 2 starred restaurants in there as well as a world's best bar. So the head of that company was contacting my publicist and just kind of like rattling off all the projects he had. Like, you know, they need a chef at the Met. There was like this project in LA. There's this, you know, project opening in Fide, and they need a chef. And I think they landed on me because of, you know, being Haitian American. I have a French background, just culturally. I started my career in French fine dining, working for Jean-Georges. I'm from New York. I love fashion, like all these sorts of things. So, you know, I think honestly, like after that first call, you know, I had a really good, strong gut reaction to the project in terms of like, this is something that we should definitely consider. Even though, honestly, like my 5-year plan was to just like work at Kann, just stabilize Kann, just be there with my team, and just keep crushing. But this was an opportunity that was too good to miss. So So for about a year and a half, I flew to New York like almost every month. And did tastings, tastings to get the job, tastings for the team coming in from Paris, the CEO. Then after being hired, I started doing tastings for the menu. And I would prep at Crown Shy, and they would help me out. And, you know, it would just be me or me and Tia, me and like a chef friend of mine. And we would just like make 5 to 6 to 7 dishes from off the menu. We'd make the juices, we'd make zero proofs, we'd just make everything. And that's kind of like how we got the foundation of the menu that we started working on when we started working together in February.
Got you. Okay. How difficult was it to depart Kann?
It was hard, because I am not the type of person that wants. Well, I'm just not a person that wants to open a million restaurants.
Right.
A lot of my colleagues and friends and mentors, people I call like really, really close friends, they have a lot of restaurants.
Right.
And like I really try to be hands-on and involved and in the kitchen and, like on the line, making sure, the team is happy. For me, that's the true joy. I had a really, really strong relationship with my mentor coming up. I still talk to him every week, like we're reunited back in New York. So like for me, working in a kitchen is truly about that connection that you share in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Kind of more than anything for me. Of course I love looking across the dining room and seeing happy guests. I love, sharing stories of culture. I love making delicious food. But for me, it's that camaraderie, that sense of working together in the kitchen. That's what I love most about being in the kitchen.
Right.
So for me, that's what I kind of really want to do. And I understand, like, as you get older and you do different things, like, you do that a little bit less.
Yeah.
Or you can choose to do it as long as you want.
Right.
My mentors are literally still in their kitchens. Like Jean-Georges, I went to 3 Jean-Georges restaurants last week, and he was there at every single one of them.
Right.
So, but, I'm also someone who is very aware of what opportunities can bring, and I'm also someone who is going to take advantage of any opportunity that I have. And I knew that this was like a tremendous opportunity, so I knew it would be good for my career. I knew it would be good for my brand, but I also know that it would be linked and very helpful for my folks at Kann and my team at Kann. So,
right.
my business partner T and I, we just started with a game plan. We're like, okay, if we're going to be gone for next year, or not home as often as we used to be, we're going to set it up so you guys can run Kann. And we empowered our GM, who's incredible, Alishka, our CDC, Verania. She's been with me for many, many years.
Yeah.
And they have full power to run the restaurant. And we have weekly meetings. We touch base, we do Zooms, we do Slack, we do emails, we have nightly reports, like we're in very, very close contact. And my business partner, Tia, she goes back to Kann every month and checks on the team. So
Got it.
So like I get to spread my wings and they all get to, run a restaurant. I have been a culinary director or an executive chef or a chef de cuisine in a smaller place for many, 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 many years. And I've always appreciated having that autonomy.
Yeah.
And even in my last corporate setting job where I had a lot of people who were kind of like over me, like from a kind of like a hierarchy position, I still really wanted to be as like self-reliant as possible.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's an amazing opportunity to like run one of the best restaurants in the country.
Right.
And to have the trust of your chef and the trust of your owner. But I do look forward to going back home next month for a few days.
Hell yeah, baby. Hell yeah. I mean, you got a stacked year as well, right? I'm imagining being a James Beard Award winner and all that comes with a lot of invitations.
It does. It does. And, having Kann be a little baby for the past couple of years, I haven't really done as many collabs and dinners with friends as I have done historically in the past.
Yeah.
For many, many, many years, like 15 years, I did like so many events, like I hosted events like Chefs Week PDX, where we'd like fly in chefs from all across the country and just do dinners throughout Portland. All the feast was the Portland Food Festival that kind of like slowed down after the pandemic. Started getting Aspen Food and Wine, like all that stuff, like any little collab, I would do it. And it was just a good way to connect with people around the country, get to meet everybody. But that really, really slowed down over the course of the past couple of years with Printemps, Prep, and with opening Kann. So I'm really excited to do 2 dinners this year with Gavin Kaysen in Minneapolis, his Synergy dope. Series, good friend of mine. Also, Michael Rafidi. Super excited to do a little collab dinner with him at Albee in DC. We've been talking about that for many, many, many years. He's asked me for so long, and I'm very happy that I get to cook with him because he's definitely one of my favorite chefs in the country.
Yeah, bro, his flavors are amazing, and he just kind of like took over. You know, like you didn't hear about anybody for a while.
No, it's true. Like, but also there is like, the first time I went to Albee, which is a kind of Levantine restaurant, there is a Middle Eastern presence in Haiti. And we have kibbeh, and I've had his kibbeh, and it's like he does all these different vegetables, kibe, which is like a very flavorful chop of a vegetable. I think he's done carrot I've had, and I've had tomato, and it's like very savory. It's full of umami.
Yeah.
And you kind of like eat it with like lettuce cups or pita. But there's also a version in Haiti, and I was like, yo, we have like kibe as well. And it's kind of ground beef that is seasoned with épices, as you know very well, and then rolled in bulgur and then fried. So I'm very, very excited to kind of like dive into kind of like the Middle Eastern Haitian connection and what that history means, and to collaborate on some food, because we have very, very clear examples in Haiti of influences from other cultures, from salad russe, which is an Eastern European dish, Russian potato salad that's actually quite popular throughout a lot of like Latin America. It's like the classic potato beet mayonnaise salad.
Yeah, bring that shit to the barbecue, chef. If you don't bring it, somebody's gonna be like, "What's the potato salad?"
We had to make it for salmon bear.
There you go, chef. Some of my family puts noodles in it.
Really?
Yeah, like elbow macaroni plus
in the potato salad.
Yeah,
that's a double dip.
Yeah, well, we're all double starch people. You know what I mean? We'll put potatoes in our beans.
As many carbs as possible.
Hell yeah! You know, it's funny you talk about cultures. My mom used to braise turkey for Thanksgiving with grape juice, with Welch's grape juice.
With Welch's grape juice.
Yeah,
that doesn't
and
sound bad.
But with olives and grape juice and sofrito. So that's fucking the trifecta was amazing.
That sounds good.
And I made it for a dinner. It was with oxtail. It was oxtail pasta with that sauce.
That sounds good.
Yes. Yeah. And there was a Jewish woman at the thing, and she was like, "Hey, my grandmother made this dish, and it's this, and we cooked with manischewitz." And it's like, "Oh no shit." But you don't think about it really until you're like in those situations and you have those memories or whatever. I call it the ratatouille moment.
I mean, you're part Jew.
Exactly, 1%. Ashkenazi, baby. Shout out to me. So, chef, on SousòlAuthor, we take it all the way back. Where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn. I was, my parents moved to America in like the late 60s.
Yeah. Why was that?
They both moved here separately. They didn't know each other. They met at a wedding in Haiti, but they were both already living in New York. But they moved to New York to pursue education.
Okay.
And to start a family and just a better way of life. And they worked in hospitals their whole lives. I remember my dad was a taxi cab driver back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember just like sitting in the back of his taxi as he was driving around the city.
Queens?
In Queens.
As well? Okay.
Yeah, in Queens. Yeah, they moved to Queens. Well, we moved to Queens right after I was born.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was your childhood like in New York? I mean, New York City. I always see these kids like taking the train. They're like 11 years old. They're by themselves. Like,
yeah.
That's a wild culture out here, bro.
Yeah. Growing up was good. I went to a Catholic school in Queens.
Yeah.
And I mean, I basically wore a tie to school until I went to college.
Oh, shit.
But it was very an African, Caribbean, and Haitian American community. Very much so. No, I mean, family was really important. You know, I think, I've written about this, but like my home was like really a hub for like our cousins and relatives if they're like immigrating into the States, or, my two aunts on my mom's side, and they have businesses in Haiti, and, they would come shop here for my aunt's retail store, or my other aunt and her kind of gardening store. So they would buy a bunch of stuff in America and then like stay with us. They'd bring spices. They'd bring like candy. They'd bring brittle. They'd bring like pickles. They'd bring chilies, Scotch bonnet chilies from Haiti. So they would just bring all these incredible ingredients. And I think that's kind of like where my interest in ingredients and clearly culture started.
Yeah.
There was a lot of situations where my mom would kind of, take like a Duncan Hines box cake and add a couple more eggs and had Haitian vanilla and like great fresh Haitian cinnamon into it.
Yeah.
And, she was using what she had with American ingredients to create something like really special for us. And, for her, it was always really important to have food on the table. Sundays was like a really big day. Like, if it was like 30 years ago, today would be like a big deal. We would have gone to church,
right?
Worn our best Sunday whites, and come home to like a big lavish meal with like the ham and like the mashed, not mashed potatoes yet, but like the Haitian macaroni au gratin.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Okay.
Onions and cheese. Yeah, it's good.
Hell yeah, chef. Hell yeah. So, in your younger years, what was your interest? Were you in sports? Were you a theater
I was
kid?
pretty quiet.
Okay.
I was pretty quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still pretty quiet. I was fairly reserved, and I read a lot. I don't think I was quite a nerd, but I was pretty chill, and like I really did not enjoy sports. I remember I played soccer. I didn't like that. I played basketball. I didn't like that much. So yeah, I just kind of like kept to myself and read.
Gotcha. What kind of books? Like the Hardy Boys?
Yeah, exactly. Shit like that.
I pegged as a Hardy Boys guy.
shit like that.
Heard that.
Yeah. But I was still kind of like hanging out with the cool kids.
Okay.
By like seventh, 8th grade, like hanging out back of the bus, vibes, dancing in the back of the bus, like causing trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took high school for me to like kind of like break out of my shell a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your first job?
My first job this is interesting because it was literally in this neighborhood.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, my first job ever was working for Merrill Lynch, and I would file papers.
What?
Yeah, like just right down the street.
Down the street?
Down the street.
So this is a
This
is a
it's a very full circle moment. And I didn't remember that till like a few weeks ago. Someone was talking about the Bull. I was like, you know what?
I used to work here.
My first job was like literally just like right here. So it's very full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
So
Also, my last job in New York was just like up the street because it was in Tribeca. So we have the Run Club on Mondays. And we run by that Tribeca. We run through Tribeca a lot. So I think about that a lot too.
Damn, shout out to Tribeca. Bro, that's a truly full circle. You know, this project has been one of those few things that I've done in my life that feels like I'm doing the exact right thing, and every day feels like kind of weird. You kind of got to pinch yourself and be like, is this real? I mean, look at where we're at. This is a Ferrari of a kitchen, of a restaurant. Like, it's beautiful, just beyond belief. And so, yeah, let me not get too sentimental here in the middle of the podcast. So, when do you find out that you're like, I want to cook?
I always call myself a late bloomer.
Okay.
Because I didn't grow up cooking. And I think my sister
Me
has.
either, bro.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It's straight up.
Yeah.
Like, I just ate because
me too.
I caused too much trouble. So my mom was like, get out of here.
Okay.
Like, come back at dinner.
My mom would be embarrassed because whenever we would go to like communions, barbecues, and like big Haitian parties, I was always by the food table. And I was like always like the first one at the food table. And she'd be like, don't be the first person online. But the Haitian food be popping, so
hey, yo, you gotta get it.
No, but honestly, like between my mother cooking and like my aunt lived downstairs from us, and she would have food for us after school, or like one of my grandmothers would watch us. Because like my parents worked quite a bit; they often worked 2 jobs just to provide for us. So we had a lot of aunts that watch us, or we go to my aunt's house after school. So like it was just like Haitian food. Sometimes like like Chinese takeout.
Yeah.
Like the pork fried rice with the 4-wing combo.
Fuck yeah, baby. That's my order.
The packet of duck sauce.
You can also get tostones too from the Meriden, Connecticut.
Depends on
Chinese
what neighborhood you're Chinese.
Exactly, bro. You gotta love that about the Chinese
My neighborhood
restaurants.
was black, so it was chicken wings.
Hey, chicken wings are amazing.
But so that was growing up. And then for high school, I went to high school and boarding school. So they fed us. So it really wasn't until I went to college. And even for my freshman year, I went to NYU, so I came back home. So again, my mom was feeding us. And then finally, when I moved out to Montana to go to college, I was feeding myself for the first time.
Right.
And I had to be resourceful because I was, like fairly poor.
Broke as fuck.
I was like just like barely paying my bills.
Right.
Eating a lot of potatoes and pasta. But my roommate at the time, Dave Gorner, he's a kid from Long Island. And we would just cook, and that's really like where it began. I would just like read like the Williams-Sonoma cookbook, or like I was actually vegetarian at the time, so like the Moosewood cookbook, cooking with like Marcella Hazan, like all those like super classic cookbooks.
Yeah.
I would just work out of all those things, and I started having dinner parties and just like having people over and bringing food to potlucks.
Yeah.
And all my friends were like, "Oh, you're actually pretty good at this."
Yeah.
And I remember it was my friend Claire. And I have to thank Claire because, she actually lives in Brooklyn. I'm going to stop by.
Oh,
but
dope.
She went up to this woman, Marianne, at this place called the Hobnob Cafe. And she's like, my friend Gregory is a really good cook. You should hire him. And that was literally my first job.
Okay.
I was washing dishes.
He's like, he's good at cooking. Yeah. Put him in the dish room.
But I'd never cooked before.
I know, right? So fuck it.
And then simultaneously, I got a job at this place called Freddy's Feed and Read, which is like a bookstore and cafe. And I was like making pasta and making sandwiches, but like making sure the olive oil coated all the pasta so it was nice and shiny. Like making sure like your sun-dried tomato mayo reached every corner of the slice of bread, so you can like make your provolone sandwich, nice and stacked. And,
okay.
Make sure your sauerkraut was even on your tempeh Reuben.
So if you were a sandwich technician, that's cool to know that places have that much detail to make sandwiches. Because I feel like sometimes
it's very important that everybody is consistent. No,
yeah,
it's very important. Especially those
sure.
crispy corners. You need that mayonnaise like right to the edge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those when you look on the line and people are just taking their time slathering it, and I'm like, yes, they know what's up, bro. The right amount of pressure to push to the sides.
Nice and even.
Yeah. Then you get some over the edge, and you're like, fuck. Start wiping it with a napkin. So how long did you work at those places?
So I worked at those places for about 2.5 years. So I was in college for about 5 years. I went to NYU to study pre-med. I got accepted into the pre-med program.
Okay.
Both my parents worked in hospitals their entire lives, or most of their entire careers. So it was like, oh, classic immigrant.
Yeah.
Go be a lawyer. Go be a doctor.
Right.
I guess that's a little bit less now these days. But yeah, it wasn't like a lot of pressure, but it was just, like you kind of see what your parents are doing and you're not too sure. So it's like, okay, you got to take it up a step. So, but like I did not do well in chemistry and biology, like my first year at NYU.
Yeah.
After going to boarding school where I was literally on this idyllic pond. Have you ever seen Dead Poet Society?
Yeah.
That's my high school.
Oh, no way. Okay, got you.
So it's like this like super old house. Oh, actually, that building was erected in 1930, the same year this building was erected.
Okay,
all these parallels. All these parallels.
History, baby.
Yeah, 29.
SousòlAuthor, here to document it all.
But yeah, 250 kids. Like you're like in the middle of nowhere in Delaware. There's like you're on a pond. There's great blue herons flying around. There's cornfields, and I feel like living there is really kind of what inspired like my love of nature and my love of the outdoors, because as a kid from the city, like I've never really had a lot of that.
Right.
So yeah, after that experience, I thought I wanted to study pre-med. Yeah. After a year in the city, after that experience, I was like, I hate living in New York. Yeah. I was like commuting 2 hours on a train because like we live in Jamaica, Queens, like past Jamaica and Laurelton. Mm-hmm. So it was like take the E train to the last stop and then take a bus or a van. And back in the day, there used to be like all these like illegal vans. It used to be like $1. It's like 10 people get in the van and they just drop you off wherever you need to go.
Yeah. Illegal vans? Damn, chef.
Yeah.
Dangerously back in the day.
So yeah. So after being in Montana,
what made you choose Montana out of anywhere?
After like my whole high school experience and like kind of reflecting, I felt like I wanted to study wildlife biology. So I started looking at programs around the country.
Gotcha.
And high school was like a very, 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 very close bonding experience for me and my friends. And we all went our separate ways for freshman year of college. And then we all wanted to live together again for a summer. So we were looking at either living together in Colorado for a summer or Montana for the summer. Yeah. And we all ended up moving to Montana. I got into school. And, we had a great summer. We just like partied. We were just like a bunch of poor kids in like, our late teens, and just had a great time. And then I just ended up staying there for 4 years and finishing a French degree after wildlife biology and trying to leave to go to culinary school. Yeah. But my dad was like, no, you need to get your ass a degree. Right. And finish something, and then then you can go to culinary school. So.
Got you. What culinary school?
CIA.
CIA. Was there any other choice?
I looked around, honestly. There was like I don't remember the name of the school, but there's like a vegan school here. It's probably like a plant-based school at this point. I was looking at that. I was looking at French Culinary Institute, I was looking at, I don't really think I looked at Johnson & Wales, but I looked at different schools around the city.
Right.
And then, you know, my dad insisted, he's like, no, you need to go to the best. You need to go to CIA. So they insisted I go to CIA.
Okay.
So
you went to CIA. How was that experience after being in college?
So much fun.
Right.
It was.
Well, you already got
What's that movie where, like, is it like Will Ferrell?
Animal House?
Yeah, wait, no. Well, Will Ferrell goes back to college, like.
Oh, right, because you're older than everyone,
yeah.
right?
So
okay.
I was like the old guy. I was like, yo, I've been around the block.
Right.
And
Like,
my roommate Peter.
Gregory is so wise.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. Definitely know how to party.
Well, they thought that.
Definitely
You know what
know
I
how
mean?
to party
Yeah.
after college. Yeah. But my really good friend Peter, who I met, he was my roommate freshman year at CIA. He was also older, from Queens as well. So we just had a crazy time. It was really, really fun. But honestly, like, all games aside and fun aside, it was really the first time that I felt like school clicked and like learning clicked, and I felt passionately about learning. Because throughout high school, as much as I loved high school, I've definitely felt like I was in over my head sometimes. Because, you know, I went from, you know, reading whatever we were reading in, like, you know, 8th grade in Queens to, like, reading, like, you know, Jack Kerouac and J.D. Salinger. You know, it was like a little hard for me. You know, I wasn't the best grade student, even though, like, that experience of going to high school and, you know, meeting a lot of different people. And it's very interesting because when you think about meeting a lot of other people, you think about meeting a really diverse group of people. But for me, growing up in a very Black American, Caribbean American, Haitian American community, meeting a lot of different white people from all over the country was like a new experience for me. And, you know, it was cool. It was like we had, you know, kids from the projects from the Bronx, as well as kids from the Upper East Side, kids from Kansas, you know, like all going to like my small little boarding school. So it was, and they're all like still like literally like my best friends in the world. And like we're on this WhatsApp thread that's been going strong for like the past like 15, 20 years. You know?
Since WhatsApp was invented.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You're the first to have a WhatsApp thread.
So yeah.
Very cool. So you're at CIA. When you're in these classes, right? It's like, what was your, like, the thing that drew you the most?
I think it started pretty early. And like, I remember wines class.
Yeah,
and
okay.
I did love wines, not because I became an alcoholic soon after, but, but because wines was just, I don't know. I just loved school. You know, I loved culinary school.
Yeah.
And I loved learning, and it just was so much fun for me, you know? And like, I love being in skill class, and I love getting rated on like how thin my onion slices were.
Right.
And like, I loved getting judged on like how my dices were and if they were like the perfect size. You know, I remember just having the best time. And, you know, I remember, you know, like cheating on like a lot of tests to try to get more flavor into my food.
Yeah.
You know? I remember for one practical, I went around, it was like consomme. We had to make consomme.
Yeah.
And I went around and got double the meat, so my consomme would be double in flavor. You know? I would put like a little extra saffron, you know, than normal, and just like boost things up. So I was like already like really chasing like really flavorful food and trying to get as much flavor into my food as possible before I even really knew how to cook, you know? But I remember culinary school really, really well, and I had a blast throughout the whole thing. I had a blast in skills, I had a blast in international, you know, like I had a blast in fish butchery. It was really, really, really fun.
Yeah.
You know, I had fun being a server at the restaurants, and you know, we partied, and you know, and it was just such a good, wholesome, fun time.
Right.
You know,
Is there any chefs that are doing it right now that you went to school with?
That I went to school with. So Mario Carbone.
Oh, yeah.
I think we
Motherfucker's crushing
I know,
it.
he crushes.
Crushing
it. I'm a big fan of all of their work, Major Food Group.
Yeah.
Very good restaurants as well. But he went to school at the same time we did. I'm trying to think who's, you know, like the most prolific chef from my era. Honestly, you know what? A lot of people are not cooking, you know? It's very interesting because when I think about everyone I went to school with, I'm not sure how many of them are actually still cooking. Because you realize you can't do this forever.
Yeah.
Either your back goes out, or you have a health issue, or you want to raise a family. You know, and like it's like a lot of people, you know, want to raise a family. I don't, but it's you got to make a really, really tough decision if you want to raise a family in this industry.
Yeah.
And if you're a single parent or if you have a partner, that partner needs to like be down as well, because
Right.
we work mad hours. You know, we work all night. You know, I've worked till like 1 a.m. like for 30 years of my career.
Yeah.
You know, it's not easy.
Your afternoon is from 2 to 5 in the morning, basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I stopped staying up that late. I can't stay
Right,
up late.
right. It's, I mean, sometimes, I mean, just for me, I can't.
Yeah.
Being a morning guy is hard.
But you do it though.
But it feels good.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I do it when it matters.
Yeah, yeah.
And this matters so much
Yeah,
that I'm just like, I gotta, you know, I'm
Yeah.
all the way here, God damn it.
Before we were in the space, and we were like prepping during the day, or it was like morning meetings. You know, when I moved here, I didn't like move here, but like when I came here to open in January, I was like, yo, I'm going to bed at like 10. I would wake up. I was like, I need to change everything. You know, like I need to wake up at 6. I need to go to the gym, and like I need to be in bed by 10. So my phone shuts off by like 10:30. Still, even though like we're like clearly still in service.
Yeah.
But it's just like a little reminder to like just get my ass home and go to bed.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I definitely did, stop watching TV till fucking 4 in the morning. Just like, I'm going to get back my time. It's like, fuck your time. Go to bed, go back to work. That's it.
It's called something when you kind of like procrastinate because you feel like you've been doing something all day.
Yeah.
Or you feel like you haven't had enough time for yourself. So then like you just like stay up late doing nothing.
Right.
And, like I read about that.
Revenge procrastination
It's
or
like
something like
some
that.
shit,
Yeah.
But like it's definitely a real thing.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like I gotta stop scrolling. Just like, go to bed.
The thing about social media is a lot of people like dog on it for the negative, but I think the positive is it gives you awareness that like you're not the only motherfucker going through shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
And it gives you that perspective. And that's
Yeah.
what I found doing the podcast. People are like, oh, they went through that? And I'm like, yes. Every great chef has overcooked something, been embarrassed.
Yes.
Like everything down the line.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, we've been cooking lobsters with George, our current fish cook.
Yeah.
And, my mentor, Greg Braden, came in for the last day of Friends and Family,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make him the lobster. And Greg is the one who taught me how to cook lobster. Like slowly poached in beurre monté, and I remember overcooking the lobster, and he was like, lobster's harder than my take on Sunday morning about my overcooked lobster. That's like super inappropriate, but but it was, to bring it back, when I was showing George how to cook the lobster, because George cooked the lobster for my mentor.
Right.
So it was like this another very full circle moment of like, my mentor who taught me how to cook lobster like fucking 25 years ago. Me showing one of our cooks, how to cook lobster, and then that cook making that lobster for my mentor. So it's very special what we're doing.
It definitely is, and it perpetuates over time. Yeah. And there's these little moments and breaks that you realize things if you're thoughtful enough to like think about it. And that's what I've always appreciated about you. You're very thoughtful. It's not just like we're cooking it. This is just because I said so. It's like there's a reason why, and I feel like cooks these days need a reason why, whereas back in the day, we didn't care.
No.
You know what I mean about any reason why. We just did the thing.
Do it because you're told what to do.
Exactly.
I mean, I think both are good.
Yeah.
I've been in a position of leadership, in a position of control and quote unquote power for a long time in my career. But at the same time, like if I have a boss and you tell me what to do, I'm going to do it, like without question.
Right.
Like I listen to our CEOs. Like I have I have enough self-confidence to know that like sometimes you just got to do what you're told to do.
Right.
Like even feedback from all of you, like you guys tell me to do something in the kitchen, like I'll just do it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I think I realized about 15 years ago a shift in the culture.
Yeah.
And just realizing that the workforce was a younger generation. And you're like one generation under me, but like we're like kind of like the same cut of cloth.
Yeah.
And one of our exec sous chef is a generation younger than you, and we're all the same cut of cloth. So I think they're still out there. We're still out here. But there's definitely, I would just say, the overwhelming majority of the current workforce, thinks differently.
Yeah.
And it's taken some years to kind of figure out how to really talk to the younger generation,
right,
and how to give them what they're looking for. And yeah, you're right. You know, like just telling someone to do something that isn't really teaching.
Yeah.
And to be a good leader, I think it's very important to give people what they're asking for. I think that's one powerful way to collaborate with people.
Yeah.
And to really listen to what the team is asking for. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the team.
Yeah.
You know, like I am one person, you're one person. We cannot do any of this by ourselves.
No.
You know, and, you know, like I don't have like an ego where like it's like me, you know? Everything I do is about the team. You know, like for me, like if I see my name in the paper, like I really hope everyone sees their name and my name in the paper if they're just talking, like calling me out specifically.
Yeah.
But like it's all about us, you know? We all work together and it takes all of us to make the show go around.
It really does. It really does.
So I think it's very important to listen to what the team wants, and you know, that's why I try to keep everything very collaborative here. You know, and like I try to ask you all what you want to do.
Yeah.
You know, like I want you all to have input on the food on the menu. I want you all to have input how things are set up. You know, of course I can come in and just tell everyone what to do all the time, but like that's not that fun.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not really, you know, I was exposed to both coming up, you know, because on one end it's like, these are the standards: fold your side towel, keep your station clean,
Right.
You know, like don't overcook, you know, your lobster, you know, like it's got to be super tender, you know, like the chicken skin's got to be crispy. There's like all these non-negotiables. But at the same time, you know, like I worked in a place where I was there when a lot of the recipes were changing. You know, my mentor, Greg Brandon, he was starting all the recipes for Jean-Georges. He was like really the first person to create recipes for the whole company after Jean-Georges. I was allowed to put food on the menu at the restaurants I worked at. You know, I was there right by Greg's side when he's coming up with a lot of food. So like, even though, you know, there were some non-negotiables, there was a lot of collaboration in that as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's like really, really important because, you know, there's so many things to do besides cooking. You know, I think people are coming back to cooking a little bit, but I think definitely throughout the pandemic or like right before, we saw that like, you know, if you're making a certain amount of money, like you can go be an influencer these days. That's like a real job. You know, kids are growing up wanting to be influencers, or, you know, like going to culinary school and like, you know, going straight to doing pop-ups and like never working for anybody else. You know, like there's like all these different paths you can take. But I think preserving this industry and like really wanting to change it, and kind of like I talk about generational trauma quite a bit. And like us moving into a space where like everyone feels good, there's diversity, there's mixed genders in the kitchen, you know, there's, you know, female and females in positions of leadership. You know, I think just diversity across the board is like critically important.
Yeah.
And you know, I think we can kind of resurrect our industry and start really creating safe spaces in kitchens, because that really hasn't happened a long time.
Long time. A lot of the cooks, you know, just have that trauma still. You know, you try to rip it right out of them because, you know, they don't need to fear anymore. But it's good to have a little bit of butterflies, you know, when you're coming in doing something new or doing something challenging.
Yeah. I mean, you said it best, you know, serious but fun, you know, like you know, you're like, I love that we're a serious but fun kitchen. And like, it's like really important, you know, and I think there's tension in the moment and there's stakes is high, and, you know, you look at ticket times and you look at something and you're questioning if it needs to be refired or if it's perfect enough. And like, these are all like in the moment critical decisions that affect, you know, our blood pressure. Yeah. You know, but at the same time, that is a moment in time and that is the job, you know, but like, we shouldn't be, you know, screaming at each other or like bringing it past like the food or past, you know, like coaching, you know, like we have to go home on the same page. You know, we shouldn't be going home with resentments about how things went down, you know, because, you know, high pressure situations will bring high pressure, but it needs to stop after that plate goes out. You know,
right.
We need to come back. We need to bounce back. We need to regroup. You know, because, you know, we've seen this in our coaching this week. You know, different people have different levels of sensitivity. So, you know, what might be just a comment in passing to one person might be like really impactful and to another person. And what might be just like a bleep in you know, high pressure moment for one person might devastate somebody else.
Right.
So it's, that's a nuance of being a good manager, is being able to, find out enough about everybody to see how they react to information and give them that information. You know?
Definitely.
And like I have a lot of employees and a lot of staff and a lot of teammates, and when I am in a kind of like lower position, I only want to be treated the way I treat my staff.
Right.
And like I think that's like really important for me. And I always listen to my staff. So when I ask for help from my seniors, I want help.
Fuck yeah, chef. Well said. So in the timeline, we're in culinary school, CIA. What was your internship?
Oh yeah. This is good. So my externship was at Jean-Georges.
Okay.
So I was the first.
Shot high.
Yes, first extern from the CIA to work at Jean-Georges.
Damn.
This was 1999.
Historic.
A long, long time ago. I'm sure some of you weren't even born yet.
I was.
But
I was 10.
There you go. So my in was the CDC of Jean-Georges. Didier Varro was my mom's really good friend's son-in-law. So that was my in. So I think he got wind that I was in culinary school.
Okay.
And they just worked it out. And so I had to get Jean-Georges approved and like all that stuff. And it was a very, very good experience because I was like literally thrown on the line.
Right.
I was like literally working entremet like at Jean-Georges in 1999 as an extern, and yeah, I had like Danny, who was kind of like the chef de partie of the station, but he would jump off, and I was like literally just like working the line at Jean-Georges,
Right.
And
was JG at the pass?
Oh yeah, and he was spicy back then.
Yeah,
it was like very early in the Jean-Georges days, and Jean-Georges like had a very mercurial opening. 4 stars New York Times, right off the bat.
Right.
Like, very, very popular. 3 Michelin stars when the stars came to New York finally.
Yeah.
That was after I had left. But yeah, stakes were high. I definitely remember him making me cry.
Yeah.
On the line. And I don't know if it's like he made me cry or it was just like the pressure.
Oh, yeah.
The pressure of like not being able to keep up. You're going head to head with the fucking saucier,
Yeah. Very cutthroat competition back in the day, too.
I've definitely cried a few times in the kitchen.
Yeah.
At my last job in Portland, we would do like 600 to 700 covers a day during the summer. And then I remember by August every day, because unlike New York, summer's busy in Oregon.
Yeah.
And it was like 10,000 square feet. We had 2 decks. So we had late night menu. So it was like a lot. So every August, by one day in August, I would break down in the dining room and just start crying.
Yeah.
And I think that was like really on external. That was like the first time I cried at work.
Okay.
And it was just from the pressure, and JG was like, "What's up with this guy? He can't keep up." And like I just like was just like crying in the dish pit.
Dude, that's the worst when they make general comments about you and you know it's about you, and everybody's like, "Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know why you can't keep up, chef." Like people are answering. You're like, "Stop answering." That shit's so funny. Oh my god.
Yeah.
How long did you work there, JG?
So I did my internship. That was a few months, and then I graduated from college in August of 2000. In September 2000, I started working at Jean-Georges.
Okay.
I started in Nougatine, which is the cafe, which is in Jean-Georges. So
Was Chef Greg there?
Chef Greg was a line cook in Jean-Georges when I was an extern in Nougatine, and then he became the chef. No, I'm sorry. Chef Greg was a line cook when I was an extern.
Yeah.
And then when I became a line cook, I started in Grand Marché. After culinary school, he had already become a sous chef.
Okay, got you.
So he kind of like had a couple of positions ahead of me. But again, I worked Grand Marché and Nougatine for like 9 months, made it to the line, like literally almost chopped my finger off my first day on the line. Got 6 stitches. I still have the scar. Literally my first day on the line. I had this big ass fucking hankles.
Fucking blood everywhere.
Hankles.
Yeah, the hankles.
Hankles.
At that moment, nobody fucking cared about Japanese knives.
I know. Razor sharp hankles from like culinary school still.
Right. So thick and heavy.
And Greg was like, I like literally had like got on the line, like cut myself and like had to go to the hospital. I just like walked to the ER. Like I called Greg back. I was like, yo, I got to go home for like 3 days. He didn't think I was going to make it. And then I came back to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I worked that hotline for like a year. It was the height of foams.
Right. Yeah. Was WD-50 popping off at that moment? Okay,
yes.
got you.
Very.
Ferran and all them doing all that.
WD-50,
Right.
Yeah.
Damn.
Lots of foams. Crusting things in tomato seeds.
Right. It's like that's
all the gels.
All these dainty things. You're like, what am I doing? Yeah.
Sous vide eggs.
I mean, everybody was doing it.
No,
Yes,
for sure.
The sous vide eggs were fucking. Oh my god, bro.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, then I made my way to Jean-Georges. Worked all the stations there. Hot apps, garde manger, fish commis, fish chef de partie, entremet, and then saucier. And then after that, you kind of just like go up and down between Jean-Georges and Nougatine in terms of being a sous chef.
Right. Okay. How long were you sous chef there?
I was a sous chef there I became a sous chef in I think 4 years, and then I became a sous chef.
Got it.
Yeah.
And so, all in, how much time at JG?
I left. Well, I was let go in 2006.
2006.
So about
fired.
7 years.
Why were you fired?
For not working enough. Or being cracked out.
Right.
And not going to work enough.
Right. Did you ever make it to work cracked out?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah.
So, I remember the first time I was late for work. I was working at a clopen,
Okay.
And everyone listening probably knows what a clopen is. It's when you close a restaurant and then you open the next morning.
Exactly.
Which in some states, depending on the time span between those two shifts, is illegal.
No way, really?
Yeah. I mean, in Oregon, you need to I don't know what the laws are here, but it needs to be
10 hours of rest or something?
10 hours between your shifts.
That's some truck driver shit right there.
So I was like, all right, finish service. I'll be back in the morning. I'm just going to go straight home, go straight to bed.
Yeah.
But you go to your locker, you check your phone, everyone's going out, and like I fucking went uptown, partied at my friend Justin's house, woke up in like a pool of piss on his couch.
Yeah.
At like 10 when I was supposed to probably be there like 8. I called Greg. I'm like, I'm coming. I'm so sorry. And you ever walk into work and have the chef working your station?
Ooh. Just looking at you like you're an asshole?
Yeah. So chef is like setting up your station. I roll in. Greg's fucking pissed. Just like walks off the station. Right. So that was like the first time I was late for work. And that was like fairly early in my career.
Right.
And after that, it wasn't like a constant thing, but I timestamped that as like the first time I was late for work. But like at the same time, like we all hung out, we all partied together.
Yeah.
Like really, really hard, and like we'd all go out after work, and they used to call me like the Pied Piper because I just like wrangle a crew, and we just like go downtown, hit the bars, and like go hit the club, and like over the course of like 7 years of this behavior, like it just
started to catch up.
It started to catch up.
Right.
You're working at like a very great, renowned restaurant in New York City.
Yeah.
New York is a 24-hour city at that time.
Right.
It's like the height of the aughts. Like it's like you go to the club at 6 a.m. And then you leave the club at like barely before you have to go to work.
Right.
Or you like go to the club like all day. Leave the club at like midnight. So you've stayed up for 2 days already.
Right.
And even if like on like a school night, you can go to after hours, some illegal bar, buy a bunch of Coke, from 4 to like 8.
Right.
Like go sleep for 2 hours and then go work at noon, like shit like that, So it was tough, it was tough. I would do drugs at work. I would drink at work. It was like not good,
Drink at work?
Oh, yeah. It was not good.
You bring your own shit?
No.
Or did you like take it from the bar?
Like cooking wine. It was not glamorous.
Cooking wine?
Not glamorous.
Okay, you were just a straight alcoholic. Straight. I thought you were having fucking G&Ts on your station. I'm like, my man. Well, there was no canned cocktails back in the day.
And like, I wasn't the type of person that like would wake up and drink. I'm not that type of alcoholic. Because some people, they like literally get the shakes. They have to like wake up and drink.
Right.
I wouldn't. It would be more like, I'm so hungover. I feel like shit.
Hair of the dog.
Hair of the dog.
Yeah.
By like 4.
Right.
You know, and then by like 10, like you feel good again, and you're ready to go out.
You're ready to go out.
So you fucking call the guy, and
Yeah.
then, like he shows up, and then it's midnight, and then you're at the bar again, ready to do it all over again.
Did you find it hard to get respect as a sous chef because you were going out so hard? But because everyone was involved, it didn't matter.
I mean, it was like, honestly, like it was fun for like a hot minute.
Yeah.
You know, like it was almost kind of manageable.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you know, in college, I had done a lot of drugs, like a lot. You know, it was the late '90s. It was the rave era. You know, like ecstasy, had just come out. Special K had just come out. You know, I was a raver. I also was living in Missoula, so like,
ain't shit.
A lot of small town fucking meth.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So like, it was like everything. We'd like get drugs mailed from New York. Like, you know. So like, I put myself around the block. I'd stayed up for a couple days already. You know,
Right.
College, you know, like I'd been cracked out, but like I also had 2 jobs, so like I just like worked, you know. So like, I had been putting myself through it, but at a certain point, the scale became unbalanced.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And like hanging out with the boys and like, you know, everyone partying and us like, you know, staying up till like 8 in the morning and crashing in like Lower East Side and then like, you know, jumping back up and going to work like 3 hours early on Saturday because we had a bunch of prep and like working off the clock.
Yeah.
You know, that was the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you fucking crush it. You like show up early. You like kill your prep. You like you work all night. Like you have like a great service and then you go home and get fucked up and stay up all night and then
do the same thing again.
Just do it again and again and again. But that can only last so long. You know,
you did 7 years. That's
I mean,
good.
Progression is 7 years. You know, by the last couple of years, they were having a hard time with me. You know, I remember the first time I stayed up for 3 days in a row. I started smoking meth. I started freebasing meth.
Yeah.
You know, and freebasing coke. Well, not freebasing meth, but smoking meth and freebasing coke. You know, so it was like pretty bad.
How did you get to meth? Because sometimes, because like coke is fun, right? But once you go to meth, that's like.
I mean, it's just you know, you hang out with people. You know, I mean, what type of people are going to hang? If you go to someone's house at 8 in the morning, what type of people do you think you're going to be hanging out with?
Exactly.
You know, so it's just like, you know, and I'm just like, oh, I'll try anything twice. You know,
Right.
And then you know, you're fucking with like very addictive drugs.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
and you're tired from work. So, so it was fine for a long time. By 5 years in, it started to get bad.
Yeah.
The first time I stayed up for 3 days, I passed out for like days after. Everyone was looking for me. My family was looking for me. Work was looking for me. I got called in. You know, Jean-Georges and Greg were like, "Do you really want to work here?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yes, of course I want to work here." And like, I got suspended for like a week. And then I came back. And then honestly, like, I got promoted to like CDC when I probably should have just gotten fired. And that was like my last bit of a run, you know, my last year and a half.
They really believed in you.
They did, you know. It's very interesting because I feel like I did pay attention, you know, even though a lot of it was dark, you know, like I can still remember a lot of dishes that we worked on. It is really where I started to fall in love with like seasonality and like luxe ingredients and being able to go to the farmer's market and how important that was every spring when like the markets turned around. That's where I learned how to develop recipes with Greg. You know, so I learned a lot. And it's interesting because like I have a very, 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 very strong relationship with like Jean-Georges and Greg and like all of them these days, you know. But we went through a lot together and I'm really grateful that I was able to make amends to them when I finally got sober. And we've had a really, really wonderful relationship ever since. You know, I was like super honored. They invited me to do a dinner at a Jean-Georges restaurant last year. I did a dinner for 25, and that was like a very full circle moment.
Yeah.
You know, and then JG comes by here, and you know,
he does.
It's cool. You know,
came to visit.
It's good. It's good. We're good.
It's badass.
But it was a very, very slow burn to the dark depths of hell.
I could see
and
that.
Addiction. You know?
And so once you were fired, what do you do?
What did I do?
Yeah, what'd you do?
I fucking party for 2 years.
Oh, fuck yeah. All right.
I don't have a real job anymore.
Where you work at? Where did you work?
I worked at a couple pretty shitty places down here.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I worked at this bar. I don't even remember the name of the bar. It was a shitty dive bar like in Lower East Side. And literally like no one would come. Like the owner like hated food. It was me and my friend Peter. We just partied, my roommate in culinary school.
Yeah.
Because like he kind of like quit all his jobs at the same time. And
Right.
we were like, all right, we're just gonna party for.
We're just gonna fuck around.
Yeah. We'd like get paid in Coke. You know, like literally.
Right.
You know, it was like a mess. And then worked this other like little sandwich spot deli.
Yeah.
That was all induction in the basement, and like I just like left that job. But yeah, I mean, I just went deeper into addiction. You know, it was like the worst thing that could have happened.
What were your parents doing at this time? Were they trying to get you back? Were they like, fuck it, let them go?
I mean, yeah, they knew something was up.
Yeah.
They just didn't know what to do with me. You know, like growing up in Haiti, they've never done drugs. They've never smoked cigarettes. Like maybe once in their lives. I saw them drunk once in their lives.
Okay.
You know, they were like responsible. They didn't, you know, my father grew up without running water or electricity.
Yeah.
You know, and I grew up in New York in the 90s, you know, like going to raves. So like we grew up like completely different, you know? So they knew something was up. They didn't know what to do with it. You know, I'm the first person in my family to have addiction.
Yeah.
So no one really knew what to do with me, you know? And I would be like, oh, I need to move back home, you know, because like what, I wouldn't pay my rent somewhere, or, you know, like some shit would go down. And like, they would just, my dad would just like come pick me up and help me move back home, you know, like multiple times.
Right.
Or I'm moving, you know, like I'm moving to like, you know, like this one bedroom, like 300 square feet in the Bronx.
Right.
You know, and they're like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, that's all I can afford, you know, like rent's $200 a month, you know, like it's like random shit. And like there were clearly signs, but they just didn't know what to do with me.
Okay. And so after those 2 years, is that when you finally decide, like,
so
we got to change
2 years
this
in, a bunch of my friends were opening a restaurant called Mercat. A couple of my friends from Jean-Georges, a couple of line cooks, were opening a Catalan restaurant called Mercat on Bond Street, and it's right by Il Buco. I think it's called. It's like it's still a restaurant space right now. But yeah, so like I started working there as a cook, and it was just like it was like the last hurrah. It was like we were all like, you know, like late 20s, just running this like really fun, you know, tapas restaurant.
Yeah.
Having a great time, just drinking perons like at the end of service all night long.
Right.
You know, like my good friend Steve would show up and like he'd bring, you know, the guy, you know, we just start doing coke. Like by 10 p.m. he'd roll in and like we just like start doing coke and partying.
Right.
And then yeah, I mean at that point, like the kind of like drug scene, club scene had started dying down in New York.
Yeah.
And it was more about just like coke and bars, drunk coke bars, you know, and we would just do that. And then, you know, everyone would go home at 4. People would go home at 2, people would go home at 4. Then I'd go to after hours at 4, you know, then, you know, get home at like 6, 7, 8, you know, party more.
Right.
You know, and then I just started going to work late again. I'd show up to work at like 5 p.m. You know?
Oof.
And then my good friend Ryan was like, you cannot work here unless you go to rehab. And like by this point, I was like, I know I have a problem.
Okay.
But like I hadn't thought about what the next step could be like yet. And I was like, you're right. All right. And like I just like went home and I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm addicted to cocaine and alcohol. I need to go to rehab. And like I did my research and like I checked myself into rehab in Union Square, but it was outpatient rehab.
Yeah.
And I still didn't know what the fuck was going on. And like I would drink, and I would, you know, do drugs. And like even my friends who were like, you need to be in rehab, were like, give me like a little bit of coke, you know what I mean? Or like they'd be like, all right, now you're in rehab, you should be able to drink like the rest of us. And none of us really knew like that's not how it works.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
that's literally not how it works.
What I was curious about your parents' reaction when you tell them, "Yo, I'm addicted to cocaine."
Yeah, I mean, I remember that moment very clearly.
Yeah,
they were not surprised. You know,
okay.
They're like, we know something's up. You know, I mean, in high school, I had gotten busted for getting a bunch of drugs mailed to high school. I got a bunch of weed and mescaline mailed to my high school.
Okay.
And there's like this big sting. Somehow this package made its way to the headmaster. We still don't know. It's one of my life's greatest unsolved mysteries.
Right. Who snitched on you?
Yeah, who
Bro, it was
snitched?
one of your friends, bro. I'm telling you.
I don't know. Anyway, Sean got expelled. 3 of us got suspended for 2 weeks. I had to go to therapy. So my parents already thought I had like a drug problem.
Right.
And I was just like smoking weed in high school.
Oh, mescaline.
When
Jeff
they-
is a little,
yeah,
it's a little crazy.
Some mushrooms, some acid. So when they say marijuana is a gateway drug, believe them.
They're like, what is this little piece of paper? It's got drawings all over it. Why are you eating that? No.
Jim Morrison over here.
Exactly, right.
So yeah. But I too really didn't understand, what addiction was and what recovery could look like. And I went to rehab, and then after a month in, I was offered a job on the West Coast by some friends who had also worked at Jean-Georges.
Yeah.
And they're running this big, huge, like mega complex. It was like 3 restaurants, 4 bars, and a club on the roof.
Yeah.
In San Diego and La Jolla. It's called Jack's La Jolla.
Uh-huh.
So I moved out there. I was like, and I remember, like, I literally was doing coke the minute I got off the plane because my friend Justin was living in LA. I flew to LA, and then we drove down to San Diego, and I was like, all right, I got to be good. I can't do drugs, and I can't drink. So I went probably like a few months of like not drinking, and then I think it was like Halloween or maybe like someone had a party, and like I finally went out, and I just got like fucking blacked out, drunk, wrecked. Everyone was like, yo, what the fuck? They're like, is that how you drink? Like, we've never seen you drink, and this is how you drink?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it just became this crazy thing where I would just binge drink, I was like, oh, I shouldn't drink, I shouldn't do drugs. And like, I actually didn't do drugs for quite a few months. I just didn't like look for them, but I would drink sometimes and just get blacked out drunk,
Right.
Blacked out, piss my pants, and then I wouldn't drink for like a couple weeks.
Right.
But, in San Diego, it's California, you got to drive. So
you do.
New Yorker moves to California and gets a driver's license and learns how to drive for the first time. And 5 days in, it's New Year's Eve, drinks for 12 hours straight.
Ooh.
I was doing this thing where I was always giving someone else my car because I was a bad driver.
Right.
Because we would go out and drink. So after drinking for 12 hours straight on New Year's Eve, I left work at like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. Sun was like clearly bright, shining out.
Yeah.
And I looked for my car for like probably like an hour, and I was this close to getting in a cab, and then I found my car, and I decided to get in it and drive home. And I woke up to the car flipping in the air, landing on its wheels, and me getting myself out of the car and thinking I need to flee the situation as quickly as possible. But this woman saw the whole thing happen, flipped the fuck out, and called 911. So within seconds, 911 was there. They immediately put me in a stretcher because they can't believe what just happened.
Yeah,
because like the
and
car,
you're like walking
the
around.
car like literally rolled.
Uh-huh.
The car was totaled, completely totaled. It was a 4-day-old car. They immediately put me in a stretcher, bring me to the hospital, check me out, and I just remember being read my rights, like drunk as shit, like, and all I had was like a tiny scratch above my eye, and I got sent to jail. And 2 days later, my landlord, who was my friend, like found me because he started just looking for me at the jails.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I got arrested. Literally like a month later, I was arrested again for being drunk in public. So it was like a very, very eye-opening time in terms of realizing that, I was an alcoholic. And that whole time, like really just like reinforced my alcoholism. I didn't do drugs for quite a few times. I was there for like 8 months, and I think I did some coke like the last month I was there. Mm-hmm. But then that took me to Portland, Oregon, and I was like, woohoo, new city. A lot of my friends from college had moved there.
Okay.
And I just went into like a full relapse. And it wasn't as, they call it the bottom. Your bottom is like your worst, like your lowest moment in life. And like I truly felt my bottom was like my last kind of year in New York City.
Yeah.
Being like addicted to meth and like, like it was like the worst, like I would literally like have like no money. I'd have to jump the turnstile. I'd like smoke cigarettes from off the street, it was like not good, luckily my parents always took me in, and I always had friends who would look out for me, but like I was just like not in a good place, you know? So moved to Portland, started partying again. But Portland was like a little bit different because I had some friends who had kids and were owning houses, and it was just like I started seeing there's like a little bit of a better way of life. Yeah. And very interestingly, the first day I walked into my job where I was the CDC of this little Asian bistro. Yeah. My sous chef was like, "Hey, my name's Tommy. I haven't drank in 2 years." And it was the first time that I met someone who said that, and it made sense. It like really, really clicked for the first time. Even though I was in like all these meetings for like my DUI and like, you know, in in rehab, like it was the first time like someone's like, I haven't drank for 2 years. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know? So I would hang out with Tommy and his friends, and they were all a bunch of chefs, and we'd smoke cigarettes and like sit on the porch and like hang out, and then just kick it sober. And then I would just like go to the bar and get fucked up. And then, you know, after a few months of that, I just decided I was done, you know?
Yeah.
I stayed up all night. I would like be like, I can't drink. So I would like take 2 weeks off, you know, not drink. And then I just like binge drink, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember staying up. My friend Richard came to visit me from Missoula. I had to meet him at IKEA at like 8 in the morning. And after not drinking for 2 weeks, I went to the bar, stayed up all night, started doing coke, was up all night. And I was like, Richard, what do I need to do? Like, I'm like in my early 30s. I've stayed up all night. You know, he's like, go to AA. And like, that was the final push that I needed.
Right.
And like, the next day I went back to my sous chef Tom. I was like, yo, take me to an AA meeting. And that was March 30th of 2009.
Okay.
And I just celebrated 16 years alcohol-free.
Shout out to you, chef.
A couple weeks ago.
16 years alcohol-free.
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing. I saw your post. It's inspiring. You know, there's a lot of people that are where you were now.
Yeah.
You know, and all different types of places. But you went through it, and you're here now.
Yeah.
And that car accident thing happened to me. And I actually talked to Javon, and it happened to him too.
Oh,
where
really?
It's like
drinking.
Not drinking, but just like car accidents where nothing happens to you and the car is totaled, and you're like, how the fuck did we survive?
I mean, yeah. I mean,
you know?
I was the only one, I guess, that lady who saw it. But like, you know, like there's certain things you remember really, really well.
Yeah.
And like, you don't know if it was a dream, if it was real. But like waking up to like my car flipping in the air, that's like kind of crazy.
Yeah, it is.
You know, I mean, thank God I was wearing my seatbelt. You know, I could be dead. You know,
Right.
I could be dead. And I think sometimes I don't think about that opportunity enough because I really, 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 really could be dead. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm super grateful I'm not.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Me too. Me too. Otherwise, I'd be working for some pasty white chef with no spice. You know what I'm saying? Like, shit. We have to start with low flavors. Build. No, fuck off. Amazing. So you get sober. Where are you working now? Where are you?
So the funny thing is I moved to Portland to work at this hotel restaurant.
Yeah.
Departure. And again, you know, like I started working there, and I just went out and did a bunch of Molly one night, and after the bar, and like I didn't go to work the next day.
Okay.
And I came up with like this very elaborate story about how I couldn't see and how my vision was going. Like it was like
who believed that?
You start running out of lies.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's like how many times can like the dog be sick, or like, you know, like God forbid you say someone in your family died. It's like you start running out of lies.
The fourth time they've died.
You know, that's why I get really triggered when I feel like an employee is like lying about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you can't fool me. Like I've been around the block.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't believe you. You know, I've used this story. You know.
Right.
But that's something that I need to work on because that's me projecting. I'm very self-aware about that.
Okay. Okay.
But either way, you know, I fucked off that job, got let go, didn't show up, whatever. So I started working at this place, Saucebox, and it was like a very like it's kind of small in the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
You know, there's like roaches. I was like, I'm being punished. You know, like this is like triggering me back to New York City, like my last job working at those dive bars. But honestly, I got sober there, so it was like the perfect gift. You know, like I worked there. It was fate that I met Tom because he's the one that inspired me to get sober. You know, like he's like laid the foundation. What a gift to walk into a space where, you know, there's people in recovery and you can see there might be a different lifestyle for the first time.
Right.
So yes, I'm super grateful for that job, and I worked there for a year and a half. I got sober after about 6 months. You know, like I would do like a fucking gram of Molly at the pass. You know, it was like not good. You know, I like give drugs to the cooks. Like it was like not good. It'd be the service. I'd start doing coke. You know, it was like my last little hurrah.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like the worst, you know, but it was like still like not good.
Right.
You know? But yeah, I ended up getting sober there. I got my first magazine interview there.
Yeah.
In Portland Monthly, you know, my very first write-ups were working there and all the local papers. I started pushing my creativity a little bit, you know. Yeah, it was what it needed to be.
Yeah.
And one day, everyone from the corporate team of my last job at the hotel, where they had let me go, they showed up for dinner. And the next day, they called me into a meeting, and they offered me my job back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
It was like this very full circle thing where I'd been sober for a year.
Yeah.
And I was presented with the opportunity to take this job again, you know? And I took it, you know? It just reminded me of like, at that time, it was like a very un-Portland restaurant because it was like so huge. It was like 10,000 square feet.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like very modern design, which might be a little bit dated at this point, but like it was modern for then. I don't know, it just reminded me of like working in New York, you know?
Right.
So I took the job and I crushed it, you know? I was really happy, you know? I was like on a pink cloud from being in recovery for like many, 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 many years, you know?
Right.
Like I would just fucking jump out of bed. I'd fucking eat like so healthy.
Yeah.
I'd be running marathons in the woods.
Queen's
you know?
playing in the background.
You know,
You're
like,
my best
you know,
friend.
I was like so happy.
Yeah.
You know, they call it the pink cloud when you get sober and you're like, oh, life is amazing.
Okay.
You know, and I was on that pink cloud for a really, really, really long time.
Got it.
But yeah, so, you know, that's why for me, I believe in second chances because I was given a really, really big second chance and they had no reason to give me a second chance because they didn't know about my addiction struggle, you know, they didn't know about my recovery either, you know,
Right.
like Michael Carternbell, who was like the kind of like corporate chef, he just believed in me, you know, he just give him a second chance, you know, that's why I will always give someone a second chance, you know, and I have always said, and I exercise this, you know, if I do have a teammate who is struggling with addiction issues clearly,
Yeah.
I will always have a conversation with them once about, hey man, this is me talking to you or whoever, hey, whoever, this is me talking to you person to person.
Yeah.
I'm not your boss right now. I'm someone in recovery. You need help, clearly. So let's get to a meeting. Like, call me if you feel like you're going to use. You know, like, I will always give some of that opportunity. And, you know, sometimes people come around, sometimes they don't, you know. And I've had to let people go. I've caught people drinking and doing drugs at work. You know, but I will always give anyone a chance to kind of like find kind of like the well to drink out of,
Yeah.
you know, if they want it. But I mean, one thing about recovery is, you know, people tried to figure out what was wrong with me for a really, really long time. Like, you can't force anyone to get sober, you know, like they gotta hit rock bottom or they just gotta reach the point where they want to do it on their own. Like,
Right.
You can, you know, the saying, you can lead a horse to water. You know, so as much as everyone around me knew I was like fucking up, like, you know, it took me being like, okay, I'm ready now.
Right.
And I remember like being like looking in the mirror and like I'm being like, do I think I'm done drinking for the rest of my life? And I looked in the mirror and I said yes, and that was it. So I mean, I feel very lucky that the obsession to drink has been removed from me. But
Right.
It's not the same with everyone. Some people are still uncomfortable going to the bar. Some people can't be around alcohol. Some
Right.
people still fight cravings.
Right.
I don't, you know, and that is a blessing in itself, you know, because it's not like this internal struggle.
Right.
You know? And I'm super, super, super grateful, you know.
Yeah.
Because people relapse all the time. People relapse after 15 years. People relapse after 30 years. So, you know.
Would you give yourself grace to have a drink in like 20 years?
No, I don't want to drink.
Okay.
The thing is, like, I don't want to drink because, like, when I think about drinking,
Yeah.
I think about doing coke and getting on a plane and going to Vegas or Ibiza.
Damn, chef.
It's not just like
I get you. I don't
want a little glass of Gewürztraminer to go with my spicy food. We're going out. You're coming with me.
There you go, chef.
We're going. We're out.
I love that.
You know, so I just, I don't know. It's very interesting after like being sober for so long and like having a lot of moments of self-control. Like the thought of like not being in control makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
You know? And I've drinking things by accident, like I would say once a year, I maybe sip something by accident. It happens a little bit less right now, but back in the day, I've taken some pretty big gulps of things. Like I'm at an event and like I think it's my cup and like I gallop something and like, I like
immediately know,
immediately,
that warmth,
like the warmth,
like,
and like
fuck.
it just doesn't feel good for me,
right?
And I'm grateful that it doesn't feel good for me,
I definitely,
and I'm grateful that I'm secure enough in my recovery to be like, that can happen and not fuck me up,
And you're living in an era of low ABV.
Yeah, for sure.
Alcohol and like it's a lot easier to be sober. And this other generation, they don't want to drink like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember a lot of times when I was a kid, my mom would drive drunk, like after parties and shit, because it's just like what you did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
No one was like, in Puerto Rico, you could drive with an open beer. Couple pull you over, it's like won't be a big deal.
Yeah.
So
I remember like even kombucha back in the day was like I would get a buzz from kombucha. Now it's fine, and even non-alcoholic beer, I was very wary of non-alcoholic beer for like a long time because it's kind of like just drinking a beer. A lot of beers just like you just feel like you're drinking a beer.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's still like a tiny little bit. It's like 0.05. But I'm completely comfortable with that now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm comfortable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you crush it at this restaurant you get rehired at, this hotel.
Yeah.
Crying once a year in
Crying once a year.
August. And you did it for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, our average cover was, during the heyday, like at the height of like my Top Chef.
Yeah.
Like the peak of that restaurant, we were doing like 1,000 people a day.
Right. What season of Top Chef were you on?
I was on season 12, which was Boston.
Okay.
And then season 17, which was All Stars in LA.
Okay.
And then season 18, I was a judge, and that was in Portland.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did Top Chef happen for you? Because I know, like, for example, I had Joe Sasto on, and he's just like, they came and eat at Lazy Bear, and they loved me. So they offered, you know what I'm saying?
Sasto worked at Lazy Bear?
Yeah, Sasto was like, he was like exec sous at Lazy Bear.
Oh, I did not know
that.
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
He actually cooked, guys.
I love Sasto. He's a good guy.
Yeah, for sure. He is.
So ever since season 1, I've had friends on Top Chef.
Okay.
Leanne, she was like a Top Chef OG. She actually worked at 66, the restaurant I worked at before I worked at. It's like my last Jean-Georges restaurant, modern Chinese restaurant.
Right.
But yeah, I knew her, and she was on some of the early seasons. And I remember applying for Top Chef a few years in.
Okay.
Because my other friend Joy was on it very briefly. But every time you're on it, you can recommend someone to be on it as well.
Oh, okay. No way.
So he recommended me, and like I literally stayed up all night on Cook. I literally went into my Top Chef interview. It was like some hotel in Midtown or whatever, like ripping like lines.
Right.
And like
That's probably what got you this guy's entertaining.
I don't know. I didn't get cast.
Okay.
Yeah, Joey was like, yeah, they said there was something a little bit off with you. I was like, yeah, bro. Like the fucking gram I had. Like
Who cast you? Is it like Padma and Tom?
No. There's a whole casting agency.
Got you.
Yeah. So I didn't get cast that year.
Yeah.
I moved. Then I apply again. My first year at Saucebox in Portland, when I was working at a little smaller place, but I had gotten sober by then. So I was sober, and I don't know if I had done any TV yet, really. And then I made it to like the final rounds of interviews.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever, thousands of people that apply.
Yeah.
You submit your video, they take you in, and then you make it to like the final 50 or whatever. And back in the day, they used to like fly you to this hotel in LA, and you're sequestered, and you can't talk to anybody.
Right.
And no one can know who you are. You take like a 500-question psych test. There's like all these interviews.
Right.
And then the last final test is like meeting with like a whole line of producers, all the big execs. And you just got to pitch yourself, and you got to like tell them why you're badass and why you're amazing. And I got to like that last 50, and then I couldn't seal the deal. So I didn't get cast. I was like nervous as shit.
This is your second attempt.
It was my second attempt. So that was that. But the thing is, like, you just wait by the phone, you know, like as soon as after that, you're waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks by the phone. And every time you see an LA area code, you're like, is it them calling me back to get cast?
Right.
So it's like a lot, you know, it's like a lot of stuff.
Right.
So that was that. A couple of years later, my friend Grayson, she gets cast.
Yeah.
She's on Texas season, I think. And then she recommends me. And I was like, nah, I'm good. You know, like I've applied so many times. It's like such a crazy process. I'm like super over it. But at this point, I had done a bunch of other TV shows. You know, I'd done the show called like Extreme Chef, where like I like ran through all these challenges and had to cook. I did the show called Cutthroat Kitchen, which had a few more seasons.
Yeah.
I won that. So I'd done a few things.
So you like that competitiveness of that?
Yeah, my confidence like was just like a little bit higher.
Right.
I was like, you know, like 5 years sober, you know?
Yeah.
So by then, when you start doing shows, you know, your name is just kind of like in this kind of like Rolodex that all these casting agents have, you know? So like, it was like literally like the third person to ask me to do Top Chef. And I was I was like, fine. Or like, you don't have to do all the steps. You can go straight to LA and meet with like the execs.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I didn't have to do an interview or shoot another video or anything like that. I just like went straight to like the final meeting with the execs. And I think I just had my confidence up and I knew how to sell myself a little bit. And I got cast, you know? And I don't know, you walk into Top Chef and like, you don't know, you know, like everyone's like, do you think you can win? Do you think you can win? Like, they want you to like boast and talk about yourself. And like, I'm like, of course you're going to say yes. Cause like you want to get cast, but like, you don't know.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like, how do you know if you can win? You know, like maybe you want to win, but like, it took me being there and like, kind of like seeing what the competition was like and like doing really, really well that first season to be like, yo, I could win this.
Right.
And I made it to the final round. And I went up against my really, really good friend, Mei Lin, and she whooped my ass. I think it was like kind of close towards the end, but you know, we were going head for head for our final meal, and we had a couple hits, a couple misses, but I think she made at that time, which it was the best dessert ever on Top Chef. That's what Tom Colicchio called it. Mei Lin is one of my favorite people. She's one of my best friends. She's like literally the best cook I know.
Yeah.
But that experience, like, you know, just helped us become like really, really good friends.
Yeah. She's badass. Grew up in her family's Chinese restaurant.
She's the shit. She can really cook anything. I love her. So that is my Top Chef journey. And then after that, everything just went nuts. You know, me and my friend Dougie Adams were the first people from Portland to be on Top Chef.
Right.
We were on at the same time. We were both finalists. It was like the fucking Super Bowl.
How was it to like have people recognize you?
It was
like look at you weird.
It
like,
was interesting
to
like, you know, to be in Thailand and like, you know, have people like, oh my God, you're Gregory from Top Chef.
There you go.
You know, I mean, it's all.
Hey, Ren, what's up? Wine director in the house.
It was mostly Americans, but then you realize what countries watch the show, like Australia and Canada, because I'd meet Australians and Canadians, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, you're from Top Chef," and like, it honestly, like, it just became a lot, you know, and like I think that was like my first experience with like just kind of like really being in the public eye a little bit more than I wanted to.
Yeah.
And to the point of like, you know, I would literally walk around town with a hoodie on because like I was just like, yo, I just want to get from point A to point B.
Right.
You know?
Not be stopped in the street.
But at the same time, it's very interesting to have like a fan base because it kind of makes everything you do worthwhile because you realize people appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that like, hey, like you can't be a dick in the world because people are being like really nice to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And like all these people are coming to your restaurant and spending money on the things that you sell and things that you're like putting out there. So that's kind of like where my relationship with like the public kind of like really started. And like I started to kind of like understand. And for me, it's not necessarily about being famous. Like I'm definitely like goal oriented and I set clear goals and set achievements. But for me, you know, like I know business is fucking tough, you know? So like, I know like any outreach I have, it's really about getting my brand out there or getting whatever project I'm working on at that moment, and being able to create something that attracts people and getting people to come in and support that project.
Right.
You know, and if it's Kann, it's my business Kann. You know, like anything I get to put myself out there, I know it will help support business, and that's really why I just keep putting myself out there. Just, you know, just to make people happy, and just to keep my lights on at my restaurant. You know,
I feel like you do a good job of it, Chef.
Thank you,
You
Chef.
know what I mean?
Thank you, Chef.
Because you're still a humble person.
I try.
Still very approachable. You can talk to you. You know what I mean? I've met other celebrity chefs, and you're like, who the fuck do you think you are? Julia Roberts? What's going on here?
I've never called myself a celebrity chef in my life.
Right.
Ever.
I mean,
in my
people
life.
refer to you
No,
as...
people refer to me all the time. I mean, people who don't even know me, you know, and I think that's fine. I will, you can call me that. People can call me that because whatever, I've done TV and like, you know, people know me, but I don't know. Like, that's not a term that I used to define myself.
Right.
You know? Like, I work at my restaurants, I go to work, you know, like took me a long time to come up in Oregon, you know, like I got a James Beard Award for being best chef of the region. It took me 16 years to win James Beard Award for living in Oregon. And that was me grinding, you know. The first place I worked at was like filled with roaches, you know, like I did the work, you know. So like I just get like a little ticked off when people are like, it's not a lot of noise.
Right.
And like obviously like it's fine, I'm gonna get some shit, but like some people like to say that like, oh, he's just a celebrity chef, or
really
like, he doesn't work, or
he's
like,
never put in the time.
Exactly, and that's like far from the truth.
Well, dude,
that's far from the truth.
Even from, and I know this because you're on the line with us all the time, but even like influencers, you know, they get a bad rap, but like, have you ever tried to fucking upkeep a social media page and fucking do, you know what I mean? That shit is hard work, bro. And it's just like monotonously grinding, watching yourself on screen and editing yourself. Like, bro, come on. I'm not saying that it's the hardest job, right? It's not fucking digging ditches or anything like that, but like every person who's like has success in their field has definitely worked for it. And a lot of times we look at these the young rappers or whatever, it's like, yeah, he's been rapping since he was 12. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when he's 20, he's fucking he's made it. I mean, they're made it.
Yes, but I think we also live in a society and a world these days where you can get famous for like 5 seconds. Like if you 100%. Do something funny on TikTok or something that goes viral on TikTok, like you can start a career off that. Right. You know, like just by saying demure or saying waktua. You know, like.
But I think what we've seen with that though is if there's no backbone of the hard work,
short-lived.
It will go away.
It will go away.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, I think for me, I hope to stand as an example of. There's a lot of things you can do as a chef. Yeah. You know, it's a very diverse field.
It definitely is.
You know, and I'm not trying to open a bunch of restaurants because restaurants are hard. you know, like it's, a lot of people open more restaurants because their first few restaurants don't make enough money. So they open other restaurants. Yeah. And like that does not make any sense to me.
Exactly.
You know, and it's like a really tough market and margins are thin and food costs is really high. Now there's tariffs and like, you know, there's less cooks. So like, it's a very specific thing, you know? So like for me, you know, like I have a lot of interest, you know, like I love cooking. I love the passion of cooking. I love the creative outlet. I love the history, you know, like I love the connection to nature. Yeah. You know, those are some of the main reasons why I cook. But like at the same time, you know, like I love writing cookbooks and, you know, I think doing TV is fun. And like having competed on TV, that gives me a competitive edge. Yeah. But also, you know, hosting things, it's like really cool because you get to be a part of someone else's career and they're kind of learning how to be on TV and cook and present themselves and be better public speakers and be more comfortable in their skin in public spaces. So, you know, like I think all that is like very, 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 very interesting. And, you know, like, and like me, like diving into fashion right now, you know, like I'm just trying to diversify the group of people that I get to cook for, you know, because like if I'm rolling in a bunch of different circles, I get to cook for a lot more different people. And that's very interesting to me, you know, and I get to meet a lot more different people. So, you know, that's kind of like why I'm just like kind of running around and doing all these different things.
Right. Is the fashion aspect of it, were you always a little bit fashion forward?
100%.
Okay,
you know?
okay.
So my grandfather was a tailor in Haiti. That's like one of like my earliest memories. And I remember we would like always like go to Haiti for the summers and pick out fabrics, and like he would make us outfits. And I remember, you know, one of my Halloween costumes early on was like this like punk costume that I designed, and my grandmother made it for me.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, but like, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s, you know, I kind of still dress like the 90s right now, like huge pants and like the raver gear, and like coming off the 80s with the spike bracelets and like the, you know, like the one earring. Those are two like very iconic fashion decades that kind of inspired me. Yeah, and I've gone through every phase from, you know, the deep V American Apparel phase to like the skinny jean, like flannel phase, all black phase. And, you know, now I'm just like in my fashion girly era.
I know, and I mean, you're at the prime time location for that, chef.
Yeah, it's good.
Printemps. Shout out to that. Hell yeah, chef. So, what are your plans for the future? You know, like what's like the ultimate oasis for Gregory Gourdet?
For Gregory Gourdet, I don't know. It involves, I just want everyone working at Printemps to get everything they want out of this experience.
Yes.
And I know collectively we are esteeming to get a star at Maison Passerelle.
Yes.
And, you know, I'm a very patient person.
Yeah. And
I think if we can achieve that goal this year, that's incredible. If we don't achieve that goal this year, we're still going to work towards that
100%.
Work at that standard.
Yeah.
And if it comes this year, if it comes in 5 years, if it comes in 8 years, we're still going to be operating.
Yeah, we'll be here for it, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I'm just excited. My reactions from being open a few days this week is there are still a lot of guests of color who are very, very proud of what we're doing.
Yeah.
You know, this is a very POC kitchen, which I love. That's incredible, you know, to me. And, you know, like last night, mad tables of Haitians. You know? And that love from the Haitian community, I feel it. It's like really important, you know, and even non-Haitians, you know, like just like folks of color, they're just proud to see us doing what we do. Yeah. And proud to see us in spaces like this. And it feels good, you know? So for me, I want Maison Passerelle and all of our Printemps outlets to be successful, to be delicious, to be award-winning, to be busy, and then we just take it from here. You know, like who we're gonna cook for, what crazy events are we gonna do, like what pop-ups, what collaborations, how can we support the community? You know, how can we support the Haitian community, the Puerto Rican community, like all the communities that represent us. Like I'm just excited to get going and, you know, have a space that, you know, people can come and commune and have a great time.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the precipice of greatness on another level from whatever's been done here in New York. Yeah, I think, and it's not in like a pretentious way of like we're better than you. It's just in the humblest way possible. Yeah, we will be the best.
the best for ourselves,
straight up and down.
You know? I mean, you don't need to be the best for anybody else but yourself.
Exactly.
You know? And like being the best doesn't compare you to other people, because I never compare myself to other people. And that's one of the life lessons that has allowed me to like move in a space of peace. Yes, of course. Because I don't have jealousy. Yeah. You know, because I feel like if I see someone with something, and I might joke about it, you know, like I have friends who have far more wealth than I do. Yes, of course. You know, I'm still fucking counting my pennies and making sure I can make payroll like Kann, you know, every couple of weeks, you know. I have friends who have done all the things that I've wanted to do and things that I want to do that I haven't been able to do yet. But that just inspires me, you know. If I see someone with something, if like there's like a cool event, and I'm like, yo, I've never been invited to that event. That looks like a cool event. I'll just be like, oh, I'll just like email the organizer, and be like, can I do your event?
Can I get in that event?
You know, and like sometimes it takes like a few years. Like I've always wanted to go to Cayman Cookout. I've been asking Eric Repair for years, you know. And I finally got my invite, you know? So it took like 3 years, you know?
No,
like, you gotta get Eric's number, like, you know, like I did a show with them, you know, like you work it, you know? Yeah. I'm like, Andrew Zimmer and yo, hook me up, you know what I mean? Like, I work the connections. But yeah, and you know, I was getting an award in Paris with Eric Repair, and he like tapped me on the shoulder and invited me to Cayman Cookout, you know? So it's like, you just got to work toward things. Like, you can't have jealousy and the things that other people have. Like, that can't bring you down.
Hell no.
It's got to inspire you.
Yeah.
Because you can have anything you want if you work for it.
Yeah.
And, like, that is a very, very important life lesson. And, like, working for things often it doesn't mean getting paid for things all the time. You know, like I know my value, I know my worth, and like there's a lot of things that I will not do for free.
Right.
You know, but there's a lot of things that I've done in my career for free because I know that I have used that opportunity to my advantage. And I'm not telling anyone to work for free in this time of, you know, shifty owners and, you know, like labor laws and like all that stuff, 100%. You know, like back when I was a cook, I worked for free all the time, worked off the clock all the time. You know, we know that's illegal. But I encourage people to go through life thinking about what opportunities can bring them and what they can get out of things. And if you can see that you can parlay something into something else, it will be worth it, you know?
Hell yeah, chef. I think we leave it right there. SousòlAuthor, baby. Maison Pezzarel, 1 Wall Street. We out here. We opened April 17th. We're open 7 days a week in a month.
Oh, God.
Let's fucking get it,
Let's
chef.
go.
Let's get it.
Let's go.
SousòlAuthor, baby. That's it.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Woo. Good interview.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I'm one of the best.